Countdown.
Hey, 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 hey! Welcome, welcome, welcome! You know what time it is. It is time for another episode of Asking Agents. Yes! And this time, I have my very, very good friend and home inspector, Derrick Johnson. Hey, Derrick, how are you?
Hello.
So listen, we're just going to sit here tonight. We're going to answer your questions. You all know how this works. It only works if you have questions. If you don't have questions, we kind of just literally going to be sitting here talking and clowning like we always do. But nah, seriously, home inspections is probably one of the biggest things that happen once you go under contract on a home. And a lot of times people are like, well, should I get a home inspection? What kind of home inspection should I get? What if I'm behind new construction? What kind of home inspection should I get? So those are some of the questions that we are going to answer tonight. But before we get into it, I do want to formally introduce my good buddy, my good pal, Derrick Johnson of Pride Property Inspections. Derrick has been in the industry for a long time, and he's done numerous things across the real estate spectrum. Derrick, why don't you take a moment and tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I guess I've been doing home inspections for about 10 years or so. I was an appraiser for a while prior to the 2008 market crash. I built homes. I used to build custom homes for quite some time here in Charlotte. So my whole career has been around the real estate industry in one way or another.
Awesome. So you've been doing inspections for the last 10 years. I once asked you to come in to one of my first-time home buyer seminars. And at that seminar, you talked about the home being a living, breathing instrument. And I thought that was so fascinating. Tell our viewers a little bit about that.
Well, a home is truly a living, breathing entity, because once a home is closed up, it doesn't function like it should. All the materials are made to get moisture, to change temperatures, and these things. And once a home is closed up, you start to get a lot of pipe deterioration. All of the rubber seals and the different fixtures in the house start to break down. The door locks don't work as well. So a house, it really needs air to function and stay in its proper form.
It's what I call, you need to love on it. If you're not loving on your home, it's going to fall apart. You got to take care of it and love on it a little bit. Open and close those doors. Open and close those windows and actually live in it. So that is so, so fascinating. But Derrick, one of the number one questions that I get all the time is, do I really need a home inspection?
Yeah. First of all, I guess the biggest thing about a home is that there is no perfect home. There's always going to be something wrong. And I think a lot of times people don't realize how many people are involved in actually building a home just straight from the foundation up. It's, I don't know, just a number of human interaction, a lot of human interaction, and one person's dependent on another person and that thing. So a lot of times small things are looked over because everybody's it's kind of like a dominoes effect. I can't do this until the mechanical guy does this. So you find a lot of small things that are left out. And then with the new home, you're going to find things that may not show up for another 5 years or so. So I try to find those things where we have moisture penetration in the house, or where we have cracks that will eventually widen or split and let more moisture in. The number one, I guess, enemy of a house is actually moisture. Whether it's through the rain or through a leaky pipe or whatever it is, it's just moisture deteriorates everything.
Moisture deteriorates everything. Did you all hear that? That means your water can't really be getting wet like that. Look, if you have a flood, right? That's why you don't want to be in a flood zone. When you're buying a house, that's exactly why you don't want to be in a flood zone. You know, and a lot of people say, is it in a flood zone? Is it in a flood zone? Well, guess what? You got to get special insurance if it is in a flood zone. So again, water is bad for the home. It's good for putting out fires, but bad for your home. So I'm so glad that we know that. So Derrick, a lot of times people will say, and just for those that are joining in, we are here with our home inspector, Derrick Johnson of Pride Property Inspections, and we're just answering your questions about home inspections and why we should or why we should not get them, what's important about them. And so Derrick just talked to us about it being a living, breathing entity, and that, you know, if you don't use your home, it will literally deteriorate and fall apart. And that's what happens when you see all those abandoned homes in areas that, you know, people have moved out or an elderly person has passed away and no one has taken over that home just sits there and it begins to deteriorate. So we definitely want to make sure that you're taking care of your home, you're living in it, you're using the doors, you're opening, closing the doors, opening, closing the windows, just, functioning in that environment. So if you have questions, you can always just type them in the chat. Any questions that you have for an inspector. He already told you it's very important to have an inspection because there are so many different people involved in just building the home. But most of the times, Derrick, you are called on a resale home versus a new construction. And what are some of the common things that you'll find in a home that may scare the buyer, but is not really something to be scared about?
I guess one of the things is like people think they have a roof leak, for instance, and you have these vent pipes that run through, they penetrate to the outside to take out the gases from either the bathroom or the kitchen or whatever. Well, there's the little black boots around them. They stop the water from coming in. So people will see, like a roofer will say, hey, you have a roof leak. And actually you don't have a roof leak. It's just a $15 boot. So a lot of times when I write the report, I'll say, well, there was water found on the roof sheathing up in the attic space, which means you have a leak. But that doesn't mean that you need to replace the whole roof. A lot of times you just simply need the boots replaced around the roof penetrations, right? And then the other thing is cracks in the foundation. If you have a footing, which is just a concrete pad that this house sits on, and it's held down by bolts to keep it from blowing off in case we get a big storm or something, a lot of times the concrete is going to have cracks in it. The concrete's going to have cracks because the house is in constant motion, because the earth is moving, so the house is always moving. It's always in motion, even though we don't feel it, right? So concrete is always going to crack. What you don't want is a wide crack, but hairline cracks, which are like a hair, it looks like a piece of hair laying on the concrete. It's just a thin crack. Really doesn't mean anything. You just seal them up with some sealant from like Home Depot or something, and you keep it moving.
I am really learning. We should have done this live a lot sooner. I hope you guys are learning
Nicole
as well.
is a junior inspector.
No, I'm not. But they don't call me Eagle Eye for nothing. Okay.
Exactly.
That's the joke and Derrick, here's the funny thing. Derrick is not the only inspector that has called me Eagle Eye. Okay, I've got several inspectors that I work with, and they be like, gosh, Eagle Eye, you see everything. But I do see everything because my job as an agent is to look out for my buyer. So if the inspector is going over the inspection report, I'm not pointing out things to make the inspector look bad.
Right.
Okay, I'm pointing out things to make my client feel comfortable with purchasing this home. So if they don't know that it's a no big deal item or it's a cosmetic issue, then they're going to think that something is wrong when they read that inspection report, because the inspection report itself can be very scary. Okay. Yeah. And that is why I, as an agent, I don't know about all other agents, but I, as an agent, will come to the inspection with my buyer, and I will, with the inspector there, go over the inspector's findings. That way, if the buyer has questions, they can get those questions answered right then. Now, all of my inspectors, Derrick included, if you ever have questions after you get the report, you can always call, you can always ask your questions. There's no problem there. But still, sometimes it's just better right there when you're in front. For example, I had an inspection that was done in Greensboro, and a lot of times when the walls come together, either at the ceiling or at a joint, they will have this tape to help seal it together. And I may not be using the right terminology.
That's close enough. They get the picture.
And if it's coming loose, a lot of times buyers will be like, oh my God, the wall is falling apart. So what's going on?
And actually, that's just poor craftsmanship. Because if the house is actually moving, you would see the walls. There would literally be a split. But from the moisture and the different temperature changes throughout the day or whatever in the house, if the guy that puts the tape on, and they call it mud, which is an adhesive basically, if they don't do a good job with that, and it's just a matter of months or years before it comes off. It doesn't have anything to do with the structural integrity of the home. It's just poor craftsmanship.
Poor craftsmanship. And I know you all feel like the way they are throwing up these new construction homes nowadays, there's a lot of poor craftsmanship. But I want you to understand there are a lot of rules and regulations that are in place now, more so than there were years ago when a lot of these houses are built. So these houses are being built very well. I'm a very, very strong advocate of the new construction home versus the resale. Primarily because, honey, you're going to find yourself in a multiple offer situation no matter every which way you turn. But also, you know, I feel it's just better. New is so much better.
Well, you know, the thing about the new home construction is that in this era of building, yes, they're using probably inferior products than rather than what they were using before. But the thing is, the craftsman and the tradesman, you're still going to have a solid structure. You know, where like a 2x4 now is really not a 2x4. It's like a 1.5x4, something like that. Yeah. So you don't have the same quality materials, but pretty much you're going to have a strong structure in a new home. You know,
you're still going to have a strong structure in a new home. Y'all better get on these new homes, okay? Because if any of y'all saw the live that I did on Instagram on Saturday with that long line wrapped around the house, it's crazy. So listen, Derrick, we talked a lot in these 12 minutes, but we've still got almost 45 minutes to go, okay? So again, I told you all this doesn't work without your questions, so I'm going to keep asking questions until you guys have a question pop up as well. Let me do that and make sure I don't see any questions. Okay, yeah, I don't see any questions. So a lot of times, is there...
Let's talk about the types of home inspections. Like,
this is why I brought him on, because he knew I was gonna forget that. I had told him early on the phone we gonna talk about that. And he like
let's get to it now.
Like it's his idea, right?
Left. This can happen right now.
Like it's his idea, right?
It was. I thought about it.
This typical man, right? Okay. All right. So, Derrick, let's tell our audience, what are some of the types of inspections?
So, the first inspection is going to be what's called the pre-drywall, right? Where they put down the pad or the foundation of the house, whether it's a crawl space, which means you can crawl under it, or a concrete pad on the floor, right? They're going to do that, and then they're going to put the frame in, which is all the wood structure, and they're going to put in the ventilation for the HVAC system. So they're going to get all of those things, the wiring, the plumbing. All of them are what's called the roughed in, which is the structure of the home. Okay, so once they do that, that's the pre-drywall. And the thing with the pre-drywall, we're just looking for different structural things that could affect the integrity of the home, the strength of the home, if we're going to have walls that are moving, if we have cracks in the floor, all these things that you can see. It's almost looking at a skeleton of the house, right? So once we do that, then they'll come and they'll put the drywall up, which means they cover the house up and it becomes beautiful like this place, you know. And then we come in, and that's when basically everybody knows about the inspection you get before you move in, right? It's called the new home inspection. So at that point, we're looking for safety and functionality, right? Does the dishwasher work? Does the stove have an anti-tip, so if a kid steps on the oven door, it won't fall over on them? Do all the lights work? Do all the GFI receptacles in all the areas like the kitchen and the bathroom, the exterior work?
What's a GFI?
A GFI is a ground fault interceptor, which means that if you have your hand in water and you have an electrical appliance and you two happen to make a connection, it will trip the breaker so you don't get fried.
Yeah, so back in the day when you used to see those movies of a woman throwing her hairdryer in the tub and electrocuting somebody, it wouldn't happen today.
No more.
Would not happen today.
No, people don't die like that anymore. They got GFI protectors. Like, she's got to come up with something else.
Right. It was just for the movies.
Yeah, let's go back to old Poison in the Grits. You know, so after you get the initial home inspection, so you move in, right? And they're kind of changing now, but the typical way that home builders have done is that they will give you a 1-year warranty, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times I go back in the 10th or 11th month to find things for people because this is their last shot to use the warranty, right? Because after that 12 months, you're kind of on your own. So that's pretty much an inspection I go back and do. So it's like 3 inspections normally for a house before you're kind of on your own. And the thing that I think a lot of home home buyers really, really need to focus on is that everything in this house, in any home, it has a limitation of mechanical usage. Right? You can only turn the knob so many times before it's going to break. You can only hit the button on the stove so many times before it's going to break. So I think a lot of times homeowners don't realize that these things will break. It's not personal. It's not a bad item. It's just that every mechanical device has a limitation of usage. So those are the inspections.
So a lot of times I will see in an inspector's report further evaluation needed by a licensed contractor, like maybe it's dealing with the roof or the HVAC. Why is not just your word good enough? Why we got to get somebody else? Right.
Good question, Nicole. As a home inspector, we're not allowed to do invasive inspections. Right? Our whole job is to tell you if something is wrong, and then it's one of those professions where I know a little bit about a lot of stuff, but I don't know a lot about any one thing. You know, so
just enough to be dangerous.
Just enough. I just know when it's not right.
Right.
You know, and so
but
you
I don't know how
in,
to fix it. But
right. Like a typical thing is, I'll see an AC unit in the attic, right, and there'll be rust in the pan where the furnace sits. So if there's rust in the pan, that's telling me that the system's not working right. So I'm going to call an HVAC guy to come in and do more invasive inspection, right? He's going to take off covers. He's going to blow out pipes to see if they're clogged. He's going to do all those type things because he's a licensed professional. So that's why you always want, for us, most of the time, we're going to recommend someone because it does no good for me to tell you what I think is wrong because that's, I'm not good at that.
Mm-hmm. We once did a job together, you all, where the person who was buying the home, I was representing the buyer, of course, the person who was buying the home had the previous buyer's inspection. They had uploaded it for us to look at. And so instead of us having the inspector come back out, we went ahead straight to the part where it says get a licensed professional. And we did that, and then the seller came back and was like, you didn't even have the home inspector. Like, you already gave us a report. Why would we do it twice? But okay. You'll run into little quirky things like that. And I just told that story to make us laugh a little bit and to drag the time on a little bit because we still have 40 more minutes. But no, seriously. A lot of times we will have, you'll say with the HVAC, for instance, when you're checking that system, the differential, if that's the right word, is off. What does that mean?
The differential, actually, the way the HVAC system works, especially the air conditioner, is it doesn't really blow. It does blow cool there, but the whole purpose of the system is to remove humidity from the air, which makes you think then that the air is cooler because you remove the moisture from it. So when I'm checking the differentials, you like the supply are the small vents that are located throughout the ceiling, and then you have the returns, which is a bigger vent that's like either in a wall or in a corner in the ceiling. So the return is pulling the air out of the home and taking it into the system to cool it off. So I'm checking the temperature of the supply, which is the air coming in, and the return, which is the air going out. And again, this is just a rule of thumb for an inspector. It should be a 14 to 22 degree difference between the supply, between the air that's coming in, the air that's going out. If I don't get that on my meter, then we need to call an HVAC guy. That's the first sign that the system's not working right. And a lot of times it's something as simple as it needs Freon. So that's the first thing that's the first sign that something's not right with the system.
And then we would call in an HVAC person to do the blowing out.
A licensed HVAC person.
Like, key word there, licensed, okay? There's a lot of people out here bootlegging it, so make sure you're getting licensed professionals. If you're working with me, all I do is licensed professional because I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize my license by giving you the bootleg person.
Right. Okay. And a lot of times if you don't use someone that's licensed, then you have your insurance doesn't do it. Yeah, you have no recourse. Thanks, Nicole. That's the word. Yeah. You have nothing because it's like, well, were they licensed? And they're like, no. It's like, well, there's nothing insurance company can do for you, nothing anyone can do for you.
You got Uncle
careful
Williams' brother Jed to come in, because Jed been doing it all his life, but Jed never went and got the technical certification to say that he could do it.
Right,
so
right.
He may know what he's doing,
lot.
but it's not the right thing. So
one thing in this business that it's an old adage, and it says the thrill of a low price is long gone before the agony of a messed up job. And just because it's cheap don't mean you should allow someone to do it in your home.
That part. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Derrick, I had this going. We actually talked about this a while back, where you did an inspection on a new home for a client, and by golly, you found nothing wrong.
Yeah,
and my client was like, "But there's nothing on the inspection report." And I said, "You just paid for peace of mind."
Yeah.
Okay, but. Do you find that a lot with new
No. That's a rarity in any kind of construction. Yeah, I'm pretty good at finding something, but that was, that happens one every 50, 60 houses maybe, that there's nothing wrong. I mean, and then I find myself going over it twice. Like there's got to be something wrong.
Like I didn't find anything.
Right. So I'll just go do it again.
But you were like, what was I doing wrong?
Right.
Yeah.
Every blue moon you'll find that, but that's not a normal thing.
I had a client once, we did an inspection, and the inspector found that the way they had laid the shingles on the roof was wrong. And so when we went to our meeting with the superintendent, I'm like, hey, listen, the inspector said something's wrong with the roof. And he was like, nah, nothing's wrong. Well, he didn't say no, nothing's wrong. He began to explain to me the technical way that it is done. And that didn't make sense to me because I'm not a roofer. So
right.
I said, hang on 1 minute. Let's get the inspector on the line so he can hear what you're saying, and then he can tell me, because this is the inspector is the person that you're paying to make sure that it's right, okay? Right. So when the superintendent or a third party or somebody else is saying something wrong, it is okay to call your inspector back and be like, hey, listen, are they telling me correctly?
Oh, yeah,
because
for sure.
we're just regular people. We don't know if they're telling us correctly or not. And you always want to make sure that you circle back. And so that's what I did. I was like, well, let's just get him on the phone right now. And so he says, hey, listen, I know what you're saying. You're saying it's usually done like that. He said, but I'm telling you, your workers did a shortcut and didn't do it right. So getting him back on that phone, that again made me look better in front of my clients. Which the purpose is not for me to look better in front of my clients, okay? The purpose is for us to make sure that we're buying a good product.
Right.
And so that's what gave them the peace of mind. And so don't be afraid to continue to ask questions. If you don't understand something, don't let anybody make you feel low or make you feel down because you're asking a question trying to get clarity. We don't expect you to know it to the extent of the inspector or the contractor that's doing the work, but you at least need to be able to feel comfortable at the end of the day.
Yeah, you should never be intimidated by the inspector or anyone. You have to ask. If you don't know, ask. You have the right to ask. You're paying for a service. And, for them to do it, you have the right to ask them questions about anything you don't understand. And most inspectors will take the time to explain it to you.
They will. Why? Because they want the repeat business.
Sure.
They don't want me to be like, okay, look, you didn't even answer their questions. I'm going to have to cut you loose. But Derrick and I have actually been doing business for a long time. He is on a list. I give people the options. I don't say, hey, you better use him. I give you an option. It's a list that I send out and say, hey, these are the inspectors. I know they're all good.
All the other numbers are disconnected.
Don't listen to him. But you get to choose is my point. You get to choose. Okay, so... and you don't have to use anybody that's on my list either. You can use any inspector that you want, and I've had that happen several times in my 10 years of being in this industry, that people have picked out their own inspector. The only thing that I say when you pick out your own inspectors, I don't know that inspector. I can't back what they're saying. Okay, and so I may then make a special phone call myself to one of my own to make sure that they're saying the right thing. But, people that are guided, again, by a licensed entity like inspectors are not going to do you wrong, no matter who you pick. They're all going to be doing right because nobody wants to lose their license. Not with the industry as volatile as it is. Nobody wants to do that. So Just to recap, we are speaking with Derrick Johnson of Pride Property Inspections. He is a home inspector, and he has been answering my questions because you all haven't been putting anything in the comments. So he's
no pressure here.
Yeah, no pressure at all. You know how Ask an Agent works. You got to ask us some questions. So it's not too late for you to ask your questions. We still have a good 35 minutes left in the broadcast.
Is the clock still working?
And so we're doing this lightheartedly, and we're joking and we're clowning around, but this is a serious topic when you're purchasing a home. A lot of times, Derrick, I will have sellers who are getting ready to list their home, and they say, "Hey, listen, should I have an inspection done?" What would you say to the seller?
Yes. I do a lot of pre-sale inspections. Obviously, the price is less because it's a different focus kind of. I'm not worried about the names or brands of things. I'm simply trying to find your big ticket items. Like I want to know, is the HVAC system working? I want to know, is the hot water heater, does it have leaks? Is the roof leaking? What's the age of the roof as far as the shingles go? Do we have any cracks? Are the windows all functioning? Because that keeps a seller from having sticker shock. Because, if I find something, then Nicole's going to say, well, we know it's here, so we're ready to negotiate that already. It's not like when their inspector shows up, oh, we didn't know that, and now it kind of moves, it takes away from her strength to negotiate. So, yeah, I do a lot of pre-sale inspections.
Now, I will tell you this tidbit to my sellers. Getting a pre-seller's inspection does now put everything as a material fact that I, as an agent, have to divulge to the other side, okay? So anything that we know about that cannot be found out during a normal home inspection, we have to tell it. So if we do the inspection, we found out the HVAC really isn't working correctly, we're not going to put a Band-Aid on it just to get through. Not if you're my client, okay? Not if you're my client. There are some people that do that, but we're not going to put a Band-Aid on it just to get you through. We do have a question from the audience, so I'm going to go ahead and read that right now. What happens if your inspector tells you there's a problem and the builder tells you it is fixed, but they didn't do it? How can you, but they didn't do it. How can you prevent that from happening? So basically she's saying she had an inspection done. The inspector told her something was wrong.
Right.
But turns out, and the builder said they fixed it, but they haven't fixed it. So I'm guessing you're asking, what is your recourse when they haven't fixed it, or how could you prevent it from being done in the first place? If I'm not paraphrasing you right, you can feel free to type some more to make sure I'm making sense of your question here. Derrick?
I had that happen maybe last summer. There was a problem in the crawl space and we couldn't get the water. It was standing water. And the builder was saying, hey, well, we did everything we could do, whatever. So I suggested to the buyer to go get a third party that was an expert in crawl space, water and filtration and all that stuff in the crawl space. And they found that there was actually a problem. And at that point, the builder corrected it. They paid for it and got it right. So I would always opt for another opinion of a professional.
Right, because remember, the inspector knows just enough
to tell you it don't work right.
Right, to tell you something's wrong, but he can't tell you how to fix it.
No.
You got to go get that expert to tell you how to fix it. And we've actually had that happen earlier in the broadcast. For those that it says, what should I have done to ensure that the work was done before I closed? Well, if they say it's done, you can have another re-inspection done to ensure that they did it right.
Yeah.
Most inspectors will either give you a free inspection or a free re-inspection.
Yeah,
free re-inspection.
Yeah.
Or they will give you a discounted cost for them to come back out so that they can re-inspect it.
Right.
But yeah, definitely if you're unsure that what the builder is telling you is true, have your inspector come back out and check it. And I always tell the builders anyway, like, hey, the inspector's going to be coming out, so let me know when it's done so I can schedule for the inspector to come back out. Whether the inspector comes back out or not.
Yeah, you want to put them on notice like that.
Always let them know. Even with resale homes where you're having inspections done and you negotiate what repairs are going to be done, we will always let the listing agent know, hey, let us know as soon as you're done with the repairs so we can have a re-inspection done.
Right.
Okay. Now, whether or not we actually go through with it is our decision. We don't have to, but we want them to know that we have that option so that they do it and they do it right. In fact, I have a young lady who's getting ready to close in a few days. we had the re-inspection done, and it was still something not done on the list. And I'm like, look, it ain't done. Here, he just re-inspected and told us. And they had to go back out there and get it done. So it is okay for you to have your inspector come back out and check behind the builder or the seller with either option.
Because usually in that situation, the only person that has your interest at heart as far as it would be the inspector and the realtor. Everybody else is working for the other team pretty much.
Yep. Working for the other team. I work for you. You, okay? So a lot of times we will have, in talking about the crawl space, okay, we'll have people that will say, hey, I want a radon test done. Should they be getting radon tests? Like, what is your thing? Because maybe 3 years ago, the Real Estate Commission did a whole section in our CE license update class about radon and how it's important to let all your clients know about the option of having a radon inspection done. So what are your thoughts on radon?
Well, what's interesting about radon is that every year you guys have that CE, I buy extra radon box because everybody wants a radon.
Right.
They're like, my house is 10 feet off the ground, but I'm still getting a radon test. Radon is a gas that's created from gravel and cement. Okay, so once a client asks for radon, I'm not going to say no, Nicole, because at that point, who knows what the future holds? They may show up with cancer 10 years ago. It's like, man, I shouldn't have told them not to take. 10 years from now, and I was like, I shouldn't have told them not to get the radon. So
radon is a gas that causes cancer.
Yes, exactly. So where do I suggest it? I suggest it where you have a basement, because at that point you have 3 or 4 walls of cement, and the gas is going to build in that enclosed. It's like a capsule because it's below ground and it's not, but so much air circulating. I would never not suggest a radon there, right? If you have a crawl space, which means that you have a little door in your house that you can go under the house and has little vents around the house, that means it's a crawl space because that is a breathing section of the house. It breathes under there. Well, I probably wouldn't recommend the radon because where's the concrete? The only place it would be concrete would be in the garage. Well, the garage door has all kind of cracks around it, so radon is not going to be emitted from there. If a house is on a slab, most of the time, I would say I wouldn't recommend it because it's on a slab. There's no place that the gas can gather. But again, Nicole, once someone asks for it, I wouldn't dare say no. So that's pretty much it with radon. It really, if you got the basement, that's the big ticket item for radon. And I find it in basements.
Then we come along and we got to get our pest inspection. Elaborate on the pest inspection. You said,
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get one done.
Yeah, you sure do, and I'll be happy to call the guy that does it.
But when we do a pest inspection, the number one thing that they are looking for is termites. North Carolina and South Carolina are known for having termites. So they're going to be looking for termites, okay? And they're going to give you a wood-destroying insect report, okay, that you have to provide to your lender if you're getting a loan that says that there's no termites. Now, if you're doing new construction, the wood is treated automatically at the beginning. So you'll get a report, but there won't be a separate test for that because the wood is treated at the beginning. So, but only on a resale home would you get the termite reports done. Right. They will also note, though, other things that they find as far as like carpenter bees. I've had it. There's bats in the attic.
Campbell crickets are notorious in the.
There's snakes in the crawl space.
In the crawl space, yeah.
There's just so many things have come up on that report.
What's interesting though is they never report roaches though.
Yo, let me tell you, he is right about that. I've never had that.
Right, I've seen the roaches, but they're like, don't worry about it. Roaches, it's the termites.
He's absolutely right. I have never seen that come on a report, and I have shown a house where this was like last summer. I was with a client. I showed a house, and we opened up the refrigerator, and they just went running everywhere. And I said, "Oh no, you can't live here. Come on,
Let's go.
Come on." I said, "We're done. I don't know about you, but I'm done anyway. Let's go." So we left.
Did you show that house again?
No. I'm not taking nothing home with me that didn't arrive with me, okay? Just saying. But yeah, but the pest inspector is supposed to let you know all of those things. But he is right. I have never seen roaches on the report.
No, but oh well.
Okay. I've seen ants.
Yeah, I've seen ants.
Ants is a good common one. Ants. Yeah.
You know, I found the cure for fire ants.
You found a cure for fire
ants?
Well,
to kill them. I mean, it's not, but...
Take notes. What is the cure for fire ants?
Steaming boiling hot water. You pour it on the nest and they just all die.
You set them on fire. You set the fire ants.
Or maybe you killed the fire. Maybe you killed their fire.
With boiling water.
With boiling water. Never knew that.
Wow.
But I looked it up the other day and now my fire ants are gone. You know, they were pets for a minute, but oh well. Next question.
On a new build, what do you inspect in the backyard? Because I have a small river in my backyard. What could I have looked for in advance of this situation?
That's interesting. Well, the first thing would be is, does the yard have a positive flow? Which means that the water it runs away from the house. Is it coming from the creek to the house, or is it going from the house to the creek? You want it going positively away from the house. I would probably, I don't have a visual of that, but I would question, does this creek rise? You know, does it come over the banks? Has that ever happened in this neighborhood?
That also should have come up in your insurance, right. Because if the creek is one that may have flooded in the past, you would have been required to get flood insurance. Mm-hmm. And it would have come up because when you would have shopped around for homeowners insurance, they would have ran the search for that area, even on new construction, to see if it was in a flood zone. They would have notified you of that. So it may be safe to say, I'm not saying it is safe to say, it may be safe to say that there's no issue with flooding because it did not come up. But understand, the second something floods, then it becomes an issue, and now it will appear as a flood zone. If the flooding has to happen first, but if it hasn't ever happened, and I think it's called in your 100 plane flood zone, which means in the previous 100 years it's never happened, it won't be classified as a flood zone. But the second it then floods, for example, with Hurricane Katrina, majority of that was not in a flood zone, so to speak, but that hurricane took out the whole city.
Could you send us a comment on what was the red flag that made you ask that, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So while we're waiting on that comment to come in, you guys have been great with your questions tonight. Yes, thank you so much. This has been a really, really good one. And if you missed any of it, I always post it on my YouTube page, Cole's Keys LLC. Go on over there and subscribe and like and see all the other videos that I do. Every month I do a mid-month market report telling how the market was. And I just posted that earlier this week for this mid-month. So be sure to like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to get to 3,000 followers.
Let's talk about exteriors.
All right. We're going to talk about exteriors. There's several. And because one of the main things that will come up on a report is the stone on the house is touching the ground.
Yes. The stone on the house, and if you have any kind of trim around where the roof line comes into a wall, there should always be a gap. It's called capillary absorption, where if the wood or anything is touching another object and the bottom object has moisture, the object above it will actually suck the water up, which is kind of reversed because water through gravity flows down. But the same with the stone, they've learned that they need to leave like a 1/4-inch gap so that the water's not touching it. I think what's interesting is one of the most inexpensive exteriors, but probably second to brick, the most doable, is vinyl. Vinyl is very, very doable for exterior of a home. Think about it. You think about all the plastic in the ocean you can't get rid of, right? So plastic, it never goes away. vinyl plastic. So exteriors are brick. And then there's this thing called hardy plank, which looks like wood, but it's actually cement. It's cement fiber rather, not hardy plank. It's cement fiber board. So it looks like a wood house that has the slats on it, you know. So, but brick and vinyl, and now you see a lot of the hardy plank. There used to be this compression material, this compressed particle board stuff. You don't see that anymore. It's a flat plank with a little little round edge on it. You've seen it, Nicole, a bunch of times. But what's interesting is that when you go in a neighborhood, because construction eras are kind of dated, right? They come up with a product and they use it for a few years or whatever. They find out, oh, it's a bad idea. Then they scrap it and they come up with something else. So that's kind of houses are built in eras, you know. And so vinyl and brick are probably the most durable products out there now. Because even with the cement board, it looks like wood. A rock will crack it because it's cement. It cracks really easy. So as you see, though, what would you think, Nicole? Maybe 80% of the houses are vinyl now.
Mm-hmm. And all you got to do is pressure wash your house once a year to keep it looking good.
Yeah, and it comes right back. It has the color is baked in it. The paint is, so you don't have to worry about painting it or anything like that.
So with regards to the backyard, it's flooding when it rains. So does the water stand for more than 48 hours? That's what we need to know. It's not running toward our house. We can't use it for part of our yard because of the water. We don't want to damage the storage unit. Yeah, so I'm guessing your answer is that yes, the water stands for more than 48 hours, which means that there is a problem, right?
Right. So what I would do is I would call the county first. I'm assuming that this may be a municipal water flow or stream or something. I would definitely call the county and have them come out and say, hey, this is what's happening. And a lot of times they can get things done because usually they own the water flow. You know, if it's a stream or something, it's flowing in their system somehow. So I would call the county and get them out there to kind of take a look at it.
So if the water does not stand for 48 hours, there's no problem. It's just as the way the yard is that when it's heavy rain, that it comes up there. But the rule of thumb is if after a heavy rain the water's still there 48 hours later, then you do have it's called an absorption problem. Yeah,
the water's not removing itself through the ground or flowing back into the stream.
Now, when we were talking about the stone and the brick, you said that outside of brick, vinyl was the best.
Yeah.
And most of y'all learned about brick with your three little pigs, you know. The brick house lasted. So you knew that already. And that's why when you come to me, I want an all brick house, all four sides. But vinyl, as you hear from the inspector, is still very, very good and durable.
Oh, yeah.
So
there's a big difference in the two costs. And vinyl is just as durable. Yeah, there's a big difference in an all brick home and a vinyl. Yeah,
big difference
in cost. I mean,
now what about she gonna call the county, y'all? Just to update y'all. Thank you.
311.
I would call them. Okay, make sure they're right. Now, what about rear decks and patios? We haven't talked about that.
Yeah. Decks are good. Decks can be dangerous. You know, if you have a deck that's over 4 feet high, it definitely needs to be bolted into the back of the house, right? You have these things called lag bolts. If you look under the deck, you'll see these silver bolts. If it's not bolted, if it's nailed, you could have a problem in a few years. Decks, there have been quite a few dangerous accidents happen with decks because they after a while they may literally detach from the house and just fall over. So you're not going to have to worry about that with a new home. When you're going to have a problem with decks most of the time is when your Uncle Joe adds it.
That means he didn't go get a permit to get it done,
right.
Okay?
He didn't get a permit. Nobody came to check it and see if it was safe. And 5-6 years from now, it starts wobbling. You have 20 people at your house, and the deck slides forward.
And now you have a homeowner's insurance claim against you.
Plus, nobody likes you anymore.
That part.
Yeah.
They said they ain't coming to your next event.
No more cookouts for you.
at your house. So, we got a whole summer to get through, okay?
Yeah, no more cookouts. So, decks are good. You just want to make sure that they're secured. They're braced properly, especially if they're up off the ground.
Now, a lot of times, my clients don't really understand why additional structures on the property are not checked. For example, she wants to put a storage unit there, but whenever we're doing our reinspection, we don't have the storage unit is not checked.
Okay, yeah. Usually, if it doesn't have electricity in it, I'm not going to check it because it's just a structure. It's not livable or any of those things. And I only check for electricity, so you don't want someone to be in a dangerous situation and they get electrocuted. So yeah, if it's not part of the house, I'm not, like the storage unit, I'm not going to check it. If it's a detached garage, I'm going to check it, right? You got a garage door opener, which could have safety issues and those type things. But yeah, storage units, now pass on them.
All right. Should heat pumps be heard inside the house?
Depends on where it's located. I mean, if they put it right under the window, yeah. Just really depends on, it really depends on where they located.
And you all, Derrick is tagged in the video, so if we end up running out of time here and you have additional questions, you can always inbox him some additional questions. He is a very astute yet busy inspector, so don't be too mad at him. It takes him a couple days to get back to you on your questions. Okay.
What are you saying?
I'm just saying. I'll call Derrick and the next day. You called me yesterday. Yes, thank you. I'm glad you got back to me. So, but he does good work. I'm just joking and clowning y'all with Derrick. Because he's sitting right here. Like, I never get to do this. Normally, it's they're on the other side of the screen, and I don't get to joke and clown like this.
I would really still be on my phone if I didn't have the Cricket model, right? I gotta be the only person in the world that can't get on YouTube.
Except we're on Facebook.
Oh, Facebook, YouTube, none of it. I just simply get messages.
Right. Now, last but not least, because I do have a lot of people that will purchase in rural areas. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of rural areas, we're looking at a septic system and a well. Yes. So is that a separate test?
Yeah, it's separate because you need a well and septic tank expert, a professional, licensed professional.
And that's not you?
No, that's not me. I will check the well to make sure it's not leaking and it's pumping water, but I will not do anything invasive to see if the motor's burned up or see if, the capacitors aren't working or any of those things.
Do you test the water itself?
No, you can always call the county and get a water test. Yeah, I would. If I live in a rural area, I would definitely always get a water test. Every county will do it for free, so it's not expensive to get it done. It's free. I would say if you buy a home that has a septic tank, I would always want to get that checked to make sure that it's not filled. The last thing you want to do is move in and like a month later, you got right, and it's like $1,000, $2,000 to empty a septic tank, and you just moved in. That would probably be the biggest thing about septic tanks.
And I would venture to say that is probably going to be your biggest cost for inspections, is having a septic tank checked, because when they check a septic tank, they actually drain it. And they make sure that the walls are not cracked so that septic stuff isn't oozing into the ground. But yeah, they drain it and they take it out. And so when they test it and they drain it, now you've got a fresh, empty septic tank.
Yeah.
And you're good to go. So if you are purchasing and the MLS doesn't say if it's on septic and well and there is already a house there, a good way to tell that a house is on septic is whether or not there's a curb. Okay, most cities, if there's a curb, then it is on sewer. It is not on septic. Okay, another shortcut way to determine if you have a well is if there's a little tiny house that looks like a dog house but doesn't have an entrance to it,
or the fake rock.
That would be your well. So we've got a little less than 10 minutes left in our Ask an Agent. So if you've got any other last minute questions, definitely throw them out here to us. My realtor, when I bought my house, just chimed in. Hey, Andre. And he is phenomenal agent out there in these streets. I need to get him on the show because I still learn a lot to this day from him, and I've been in the industry almost 10 years, so he knew me way back when, y'all, way back when. But anyways, we always thank you all for joining us. Any last minute questions, go ahead and pop them in there. But Derrick, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how could they get in touch with you?
They can call me at 704-777-5061. My website is prideinspections.net. So reach out to me if you have any questions or you need me. Again, my number is 704-777-5061.
All right, so you got the phone number, you got the website. Sellers, if you want to get him to come out and assess your home ahead of time, he will do that. I mean, of course, there's a fee. Nothing is free, people. Okay, of course, there's a fee, but he will do that for you, and he will get you right. This market is a market that right now, really, you ain't got to do nothing and somebody gonna buy your house, but it ain't always gonna be like this, okay? And my job is to give you the info that makes you last through that wave, okay? So even though right now, like I said, we got the craziness going on. Y'all heard me say earlier in the live that the line was wrapped around the house this weekend. It's wrapped around just about every house every weekend. It is better to find your house during the week than on the weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. Take time off work. Get your offer in early. Don't wait for the weekend rush. That house where that line was wrapped around, my buyers didn't win out, but that agent told me they had 70 offers. Are you kidding me? That means she spent a good 3 to 4 hours putting a spreadsheet together just to present all the offers to her client. Because ain't nobody printing off that many pages. The offer's like 13 to 16 pages. Ain't nobody printing off that many pages, wasting paper. I'm just letting you know. But again, ladies and gentlemen, we're just here to make you laugh, give you information, and answer any questions that you have. As usual, you can always reach me on Instagram and on Facebook at Cole's Keys. You can visit my website, coleskeys.com, and Cole is spelled with a K. And you can always follow me on YouTube at Cole's Keys LLC and on Twitter at Cole's Keys LLC. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here because I don't need Derrick wife coming talking about where my husband at. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this episode of Ask an Agent featuring Derrick Johnson of Pride Property Inspections. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.